Estamos nosotros. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this invitation. We are at the Film Institute, at the 6th floor of the Film Institute, very close to our office here in Havana, the office of Revista Temas. This is the last issue of Temas, which is focused on democracy and society. I am sorry I could not take some copies with me to San Francisco. Well, the subject of my presentation will be the political side, the political dimension of changes, of the transition, the politics of transition, and the main idea I would like to stress first is that these are sometimes, many times, considered changes, economic changes, and I want to emphasize the political changes. I want to emphasize the political implications and the political nature of the transition, of the changes today. To do that, I would like to basically consider three main topics. One, the political common sense about Cuba, which is basically the accepted truth that are considered, that are basically shared by many outside and also inside Cuba about the transition. I would like just to list this accepted truth that to me should be critically discussed. The second topic will be the political issues. The political issues of the transition, in the transition agenda, mainly problems and policies. And finally, if I have time, I would like to discuss and to present a few data about the power structure and the leadership. Well, number one, what is this common sense about Cuba? This political common sense about Cuba, I would like to list 13 truths, accepted truths, that are not questioned, that are not discussed, that are accepted as a common wisdom. Number one, nothing political has changed under Raúl Castro. These are only economic changes. Number two, Raúl Castro is the end of the line. There's no political succession. I am going to show with the data that there is a political succession right there. Number three, the key institution in the new model, in the new government, excuse me, is the military. Number three, any dissent is prohibited and punished. Five, political opposition groups, dissidents, are a democratic alternative as opposed to the totalitarian nature of the regime. Number six, national political mediation and reconciliation is taking place, led by the Catholic Church. Number seven, as long as the one-party system remains, any democratic changes, any democratization is meaningless. Number eight, Cubans are isolated. They don't know what is going on in the rest of the world. Number nine, the youth want to live. Number 10, average real income of Cubans, income, not salaries, income, average real income is $20. Cuban emigres are exiles. Number 12, U.S.-Cuban policy is driven by a powerful force called the Cuban-American lobby. And 13, as a second generation of Cuban Americans come to age, the Cuban American political elite is changing. It's changing in its ideological and political characteristic nature. Well, I would love to have the time to discuss all these accepted truths, but I can't. Political issues in the transition agenda. I would like to point out 7 main stumbling blocks in the transition. Number 1, hyper-centralization. Number 2, a state-centered socialist model. Number 3, declining political participation. Number 4, hyper-bureaucracy. Number 5, increased economic inequality and poverty. Number 6, old-fashioned media and social communication system. And number 7, weak social control and rule of law. If we consider these problems, most of these problems, if not all these problems, are not exactly economic problems. And these are the problems that have been targeted by the main political documents, by the main political programs in Cuba, mainly by the economic guidelines. What are the policies that are going to cope with these problems? Well, consequently, decentralize the system, expand the non-state sector, so de-statize the system, expand the non-state sector, downsize the bureaucracy, and finally restore administrative control and the rule of law. Again, are these economic policies? Well, let me say a few words about the Cuban leadership. The common wisdom is that the Cuban leadership is basically the same. We have now Raúl Castro, and Raúl Castro and Fidel Castro is more or less the same thing, according to that logic. Nevertheless, if we get closer to the information available about the political structures in Cuba, we will find that there are very interesting new data. And I would like to share with you that data. Basically, I am going to consider like the main political power structures in Cuba: the Politburo, the political bureau of the Communist Party, the Secretariat of the Central Committee, the Central Committee of the Communist Party, number 3, number 4, the Council of Ministers, number 5, the Council of State, number 6, the Provincial Communist Party leadership, the general secretaries, the first secretaries of the Communist Party in every province, in each one of these 15 provinces we have now. And finally, the National Assembly of the Popular Power. I'm going to keep this list here. I'm going now to describe statistically what are basically the professional profile, the age, the gender, and the skin color of the members of these political structures. Number 1, the Politburo. The Politburo members are 14. 50% of them are military. 4 are engineers, 2 are economists, and there's 1 doctor and one diplomat. 1/3 of this military are holding positions linked to 1/3 of the members of the Politburo that are military are holding positions that are linked to national security, not to political positions. And they were there. The majority of the military that are members of the Politburo were there before Raúl Castro and before the 6th Congress. Only 1 military joined the Politburo at the 6th Congress. The 2 new members that joined the Politburo at the 6th Congress were civilians. The Secretariat. The Secretariat of the Communist Party has 7 members. They are all civilians. And there's a variety of professions. There are doctors, economists, lawyers, political scientists. The Council of Ministers, which is a very important, of course, part of the government, is the backbone of the government. Is the body that rules the country, that runs the country on a day-by-day basis. Well, there are 17% of the Council of Ministers, of the 32 members of the Council of Ministers are military. But only 6 military are in positions that are not linked to national security. Of the new military, of these 6 appointed in positions that are not linked to national security, only 3 have been appointed by Raúl Castro. Almost all members of the council were appointed by Raúl, and the majority of them are civilians. As a matter of fact, the key positions, with only a few exceptions, a very few exceptions, the key positions in the economic section of the council are held by civilians. The vice president in charge of reforms, the foreign trade, foreign investment, tourism, agriculture, the central bank, finances, industry, administrative control, justice, foreign relations, and of course, health and education. The majority of the Council of Ministers, the profession that is represented, the highest profession in the Council of Ministers and the Cuban government are engineers and economists. 46% of the Council of Ministers are engineers, and 25% are economists. That makes a total of 71% of economists and engineers. Well, if we look at the provincial leadership of the general secretaries of the first secretaries of the Communist Party and in every province, we find no military. They are all civilians. And there's a high percentage of engineers and economists, but there's also a very high percentage of teachers, high school teachers. Well, in terms of age, gender, and skin color, I'm going to finish with this. In general, we could find that at the top, we could find more senior white male, and at the second level, at the second rank, more youth, women, and blacks. This representation, this percentage, are very close to the Cuban population. If we look at the members of the Communist Party, which are like 750,000, over 700,000 members of the Communist Party of Cuba, their age structure and their gender and their skin color are very, very similar to the Cuban population. The average age of the Politburo is 76, and there's only one woman. The average age of the Secretariat is 65, and there's only one woman. The Central Committee of the Communist Party average age is 57. They are 114 members. 42% of them are women, which is a very high percentage. The Council of Ministers Vice Presidents, the majority of them, all of them have over 50 years old, and some of them have over 70 years old. The Council of Ministers age, average age,